What's good, people? Time for another Magic Man review. Today we've got a really good one. It's one of the books I've been waiting to do, and it's a really good book. I mean, a really good book. This is actually the second time that I've read this book. That's how good it is. It's called The Silk Roads by Peter Frankopan. Now, this is not one of those rabbit hole books. You can buy this book at Barnes and Noble. I think this is exactly where I got it, at Barnes and Noble. It's a really good book, and the reason I say it's so good is, and a lot of the information in this book, it deals with the land in between China and the Mediterranean, what was known as the ancient Silk Roads, and they call it the Silk Roads basically because that's what was being transported back and forth between to China, to to the Roman Empire, through Persia and through all that land. And most most Westerners don't know the history of the Silk Roads. They don't teach this stuff at school. They really don't, and they really should. I think this book should be on one of the reading lists, apart from like a subject that they teach in school. They should have a whole class teaching about ancient history of this area, because it deals with the Persians, the Romans, the Mongols, China, India, and I don't know how things are these days, but when I was in school, they didn't go over these things at all. Um, we got maybe a couple classes on, I don't know, maybe Babylon, Egypt, Rome, Greece. I don't even think they even really delved into that much. It was mostly about American history, and which is only was only like 200 years old. um, they didn't delve into the stuff at all. So most Americans are really ignorant of the history that's gone in between these places, and it's really good stuff. A lot of what, and one of the things in here that I didn't realize is that that goes over some of American history. They don't teach us is because one of the reasons that the American colonies rebelled is because the East India Company, which was basically controlling parts of India and the trade that went over India, it was basically its own private company slash mercenary bank enterprise. They went bankrupt, and guess what? They were too big to fail. So the British, they bailed them out by raising up the taxes on everyone, and the Americans didn't like that very much. So that's one of the reasons they rebelled. They didn't want to pay taxes on tea from the East India Company. Uh, they had just fought a war. The was it the French and Indian War? I was like, we paid in blood. We're not paying to bail out the East India Company. Never taught, ever taught. And that was the first time, and I've read this book before, I forgot it. It's never taught in American history classes. A lot of the stuff is never taught in American history classes. Let me see. Um, they don't talk about the separation of the Roman Empire um, and the Byzantines. They don't really go into that stuff in school. You would probably have to go to college to get some of the information that's in this book. And I really wish they would, I wish they would go over this stuff in schools instead of having, like umpteen classes on the awakening, and Sylvia Plath, sticking her head in the oven. Nobody cares about this stuff. It's not important. This book is important. Okay, good stuff. And like I said, it's part of the official narrative, so it doesn't really go into a deep dive of some of the stuff that's going on in the background. It gives you a nice overview, and it doesn't really start off in Babylon. I think really what it starts off is, let me see. It starts between about the time of the Greeks and the Romans and the Persians. So it doesn't get into ancient history. It gets into more modern history, I would say. It doesn't go into like where it all started. It goes in back in between the Silk Road. Some of the things in here, though, let me see. I kind of take issue with it. Let's see. They're talking about when it talks about the Second World War, it doesn't talk about Japan at all. Again, it's talking mostly about the Silk Road, okay, and it also misses the fact that in the Second World War there were two. One of the allies that was that's kind of written out of history is Chiang Kai-shek and the Chinese nationalist. And the Chinese suffered like the second most casualties in the Second World War, and they're written off. Like it's just the U.S., Britain, and the Soviet Union. They don't talk about Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalist Chinese. This book kind of missed that. Like I said, it's part of the official narrative, so it's not going to go deep down the rabbit hole. But I guarantee you, if you're like most people, I would say people who don't delve into this kind of stuff, into history, that if you read this book, you're going to increase your knowledge a lot, especially when it comes to stuff like modern day Iran. People don't realize, like, oh well, they're just a bunch of people that blow stuff up, they're terrorists, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, hold on, Bucky, you don't know the history of these people, you don't know anything about them. Read this book and you'll understand a little bit more where these people are coming from. What I like about this book is it's a brick, okay? It's not like a light read, but it's got all kinds of notes in here. This guy really did his homework, okay? It's just loaded down. This book took a lot of research, and I think it's it's a good book. It was a good second time around until I got into like the modern part of it. Like the last part of the book, I lived through. Most people that were age 40 and above can remember, the Gulf War, the first one, and 9/11. Maybe some of the younger cats didn't live through it, and they could read this and get a little better understanding. But it kind of gets a little, anti-Western about how the United States kind of sucks. Most people don't really understand what happens, how the sausage is made. They just want to eat the sausage, right? They don't understand how the sausage is made. And I think with some of the stuff that's coming out recently, especially with U.S. aid and a lot of the things that are going on with the color revolutions and overthrowing governments, things like that, the American people are kind of waking up to the nastiness that's been going on. It's been done with their money and their name without their knowledge. Because for the most part, we're too busy going to work, trying to feed our kids, put food on the table, paying the bills. We just don't have time for all this stuff to do deep dives. This book will help. If you read this book, it'll help you understand some of this stuff. It really will. I can't really praise this book highly enough. You should get it. And you could go to Amazon. You can go to Barnes & Noble and pick it up. I was just at Barnes & Noble the other day. They had a copy of this book. If you want a cheaper version or a used copy, you can go on Amazon and pick it up for maybe, I don't know, about $5-10, something like that. This one costs like maybe $25, $30 when I got it. I've had it for a couple of years. This is the second time, like I said, the second time I've read it. They say you should read a book 3 times. Once in young age, once in middle age, and once in old age. And I think that was about Cervantes and Don Quixote. You should read that 3 times. And I need to pick up my second copy. I had a copy years ago, and it's time for me to read it a second time. Not looking forward to the third time. I'm not looking forward to old age. But anyway, that's enough about that. The Silk Roads by Peter Frankopan. All right, people. Until next time.